Okay, compared to the Insta360, the Osmo is way harder to click into the mount. Okay, what does that say? Oh man, I can't see that. Check 2, check. Okay, we are recording now. So that's annoying. I've put in an hour and a half of riding thinking that this thing was recording, and it's not. Well, I'm never going to get that 4,000 kilometer review out. It's going to be a 5,000 kilometer review, I'm sure. Because things keep going wrong when I'm trying to record it. But what I actually set out to talk about today initially was not the motorcycle itself. It's the fact that I just got a new pair of earplugs. I got a set of earplugs from a company called ultimateear.com. Ultimate Ear, singular, not Ultimate Ears. If you go to ultimateears.com, I think that takes you to a different website, which is awkward. But yeah, for those who know, I deal with, for those who don't know, I deal with pretty severe tinnitus. If I put on a pair of enclosed headphones and I'm listening to music, I have to turn it up to about 6.5 or 7 before the ringing is totally covered over by the music. It's unpleasant. I don't like it. I wish I didn't have to deal with it, but I do. We're going to talk about that and more. So I first became aware of Ultimate Ear watching a username Kate video. I think it's Ultimate Ear that she was talking about. I'm not 100% positive about that, but I think it was. So let's just for the sake of argument say, yeah, it was. I remember her talking about medical grade silicone, and that's what these earplugs use. So pretty sure she was talking about the same company. UK-based medical grade silicone. How many of them could there be? At the time, I used to frequent this this Australian motorcycling forum on the internet. I'm not going to name them for the same reason that I stopped going there, because the owner's a Nazi. He's a full-on Trumper. His main right-hand man, who he lets, be as racist as he wants, is, a Bible-thumping Christian, which is fine, except that he doesn't live up to it. Like I said, he's a complete racist, a total Trumper. In Australia, a Trumper. So I stopped going there, and which is fine, but before I stopped going there used to be this thread, this long-running thread. I don't remember the name of the gentleman who started the thread, but it was a real service to other riders. It was about hearing damage and hearing protection. And for some reason, the powers that be, the Nazi powers that be on that forum, decided to take that thread down, which does a real disservice to Australian motorcyclists. But this thread had been started by this guy, and he posted a lot of information in it. And it was really well researched information. Unsurprisingly, he had damaged his hearing through motorcycling, and got to work. He rolled up his sleeves. He started reading white papers. He started reading everything he could about hearing and learning what made an earplug good and what made an earplug bad. And he shared a lot of this information in this thread, and a lot of people would weigh in and comment and talk about hearing protection. And so I said in there, hey, I've come across this video which talks about this company, and I'm thinking of using their product. And he went and looked at it and he said, you know what, I don't think you should. And I was like, okay, why? And he said, well, if you go look on their site, they don't have any of the real more hardcore scientific data to tell us how good these earplugs are. It doesn't say basic stuff like what the frequency range is that where that these earplugs cut out most. It doesn't list it doesn't do anything except list the maximum amount of decibels that it cuts out. It doesn't tell where in the frequency range that's happening and how much at each frequency. And I went, yep, that's a pretty good reason, and so I didn't buy them. Now, originally, when I first got back into riding a motorcycle as an adult, I got a pair of earplugs. I'm not sure if it was just the model of earplugs or if it was the company, but they were called ear racers. And they were really good. They fit my ear canals perfectly. They made a nice seal. They had a cool name. You know, what was not to like? Well, after a period of time, I lost one of those earplugs. And you know the deal, if you lose one, you've lost the set. At the time, I was just commuting to work. And so I unwisely said, well, you know what, I'm just commuting. I don't really need earplugs. I'm not going much over 60, you know, maybe 80 kilometers per hour. So I did that for about 6, maybe 8 weeks. And I became aware that my ears were just howling. The tinnitus, which I've had for, you know, 30 years, because I used to be a professional musician, and I was a drummer. All my cymbals were set at about this level, at about eye level, which puts them at ear level. That did a little bit of damage, and you know, that kind of pushed me. I think once you get pushed a little bit down that path, you become more susceptible to it in the future. Something else just hit my foot. What is going on? But I went on for years like that, you know, and at that point, you know, I would probably have to turn things up to about 2 before I couldn't hear the ringing. It wasn't loud at all, but it was always there. I was aware of it. I didn't really care about it. Once I damaged my hearing commuting to work, I cared a lot about it because it's very noticeable and it really increased my stress and anxiety levels. My sleep quality dropped because it's going on 24/7. Now, I've gotten more used to it, and you know, my anxiety level has leveled off. My sleep is pretty good now. But I also wear earplugs religiously. The reason I didn't replace those earplugs is I actually did try to replace them, but ear racers, the size was slightly different. They didn't fit me quite as well. I bought 3 or 4 pairs, which was pretty expensive, and none of them fit the way that original pair did. So that original pair might have been an outlier, or maybe they just changed their molds or something. I did have them for a couple of years, so that's possible. But I couldn't go back to ear racers. So at that point, I started trying every pair of over-the-counter earplugs you could get. Loops, Alpines, you know, whatever. None of them worked for me. None of them fit my ear canal. So I eventually went to the foam squeezies, the disposable ones, and the ones that really worked for me are Moldex spark plugs, and they work very well. If you can't find any other earplugs to fit your ears, try Moldex spark plugs. They fit my ears pretty well. I have heard some people say they're too big. I think I have big ear canals because like I tried a pair of loops and their largest size just wasn't big enough. The same with the Alpines. So I think my earplugs are a little larger than normal, you know. And but the Moldex spark plugs worked really well for me. But I kept my eyes out for non-disposables. I just don't like disposable stuff. I don't like single-use anything. There's a company down here in Australia called Moldex. Nope. There's a company down here called there's a company down here in Australia called Ear Molds. I know several people who have used them and said that they're really good. So I made an appointment to get them fitted. Those are custom earplugs. And it didn't go well for me. So I don't know what their licensing scheme is, but I feel like they just have, I feel like people are just taking a short course on how to do the mold process. And the place that I went to do it, you know, it was just in some person's kitchen. There were a bunch of other people there waiting to get their earplugs molded. But yeah, I don't think the level of expertise was very high. I don't know if that, I'm sure that there are some people doing it for ear molds that are great. I think I just got a bad one. But as soon as I put them in my ears, I was like, oh, these don't work. These will not work for me. And unfortunately, that turned out to be true. So, you know, I continued on with the disposables. So then a couple years later, I heard about this company, Ultimate Ear. And like I told you, I was advised to stay away from them because their website didn't have the data that you'd want to have to know what was really going on with what you're buying. But recently, I've started seeing more videos on them by a couple of different, mostly British motovloggers. Now, I didn't know if I totally trusted them. Like the ones that really got my attention, I think the name of his channel is Man Cave Motos. If I'm wrong about either way, I'll link it down in the description. The problem was with a lot of the reviews that I was seeing is Ultimate Ears sponsored their channel. Like Man Cave Moto, he puts up his list of sponsors at the beginning of every video, and there's Ultimate Ear in them. And I was like, well, that doesn't really work for me. And I was like, well, okay, I don't know if that disqualifies them for me, but let me go to their website and look at it again. So I went and looked, and now they have all that stuff up. So I was able to find out that the earplugs that I got block the most harmful frequencies as much as they can, and you know, if you have to have a conversation with someone, you still can because it doesn't block those frequencies as much. So I was like, okay, this guy is sponsored by them. He might be full of it. I don't know, but I'm going to give it a try because I need to do something here. So I contacted the company, and they told me, and it also just says this on their website, you don't have to contact them to find this out. They said that you go to a local audiologist, and you get your local audiologist to take impressions. Then they scan those impressions and give you a file. Well, they email you a file. And then you email that file to Ultimate Ear. That's if you're living outside of the UK. If you live in the UK, they have a network of audiologists that they recommend that you go to, who I presume also just send Ultimate Ear that file. I'm sure it's the same process, but So I went to a local audiologist, a place called Hello Hearing. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy was really good. He knows all the parts of the ear and stuff. It was a very different experience than getting the ear molds was. He knew what he was doing, and you could just tell he knew what he was doing. And when he put the whatever the stuff is that they squirt into your ear, I was deaf. I couldn't hear a thing. He was talking to me, and I was like, yeah, I know you're saying something. I was like, if Ultimate ears are as good as those molds are, I'm going to be very happy. Well, those ear molds arrived today, and I'm wearing them right now. And I'm going to tell you, I'm very happy. I had a lot of trepidation. I was really worried that they weren't going to be good, that it was going to be just more money thrown away, and I was going to keep having to use the foam squeezies. But no, as soon as I put them in, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I think these might be the answer. So I jumped on the bike, and here I am out riding. I'm doing 110. It's actually a little on the loud side right now, but it would be no matter what I had in my ears, because it's really windy out right now. We have a cyclone on its way in, and it's going to be messy. But I don't feel like my ears are getting beaten up at all. I feel like when I take these things out, my ears are going to be fine. And what I'm going to do when I go home is I'm going to buy another pair. And one of the great things about having done what I did, which was send them that scan of the impression of my ears, is they keep them on file, so they can just make me another pair, and there's no wait. They'll start doing it tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home and I'm going to order a set of their, what they call, I think they're called sound ear tubes. And the reason that I want that particular set of earplugs is because they have audio drivers built into each earplug. So whereas with this system and with every other earplug that I've used before these, you know, I have my Cardo, there's the speakers in the Cardo and inside the helmet, and I turn that Cardo up full blast so I can hear music through the earplugs, and that seems a little self-defeating, and it sounds good, it doesn't sound great. And even worse, when I'm talking to somebody, when I'm out riding with a friend, anything over, say, 80, and I can't hear them at all. I mean, I can hear them, but if they don't really project, I'm not going to hear them well. I'm going to have to say what 3 times for everything they say before I'm able to understand. And I don't like having to do that. So what I expect the earphones with the built-in speakers to do, it'll be piping that directly into my ear canals. So 2 things I'll be able to do. 1, turn the volume down. It'll be in my ear. It's not going to be smashing through an earplug to get to my ear. And I think that'll make the quality of the sound that I hear better. And 2, it'll make voices much easier to hear. At least that's my hope. Even if that doesn't work out, I have a good pair of earplugs now. And that makes me happy. Yeah, if you have had any problems at all finding the right pair of earplugs, contact them. Contact ultimateear.com. I'll put a link down below. I want to let you know, unlike Man Cave Moto, I am not sponsored by them. I get nothing for making this recommendation. But I'm still making that recommendation because this is a product I'm going to be using every single time I go for a ride. Every single time. And it's going to help me keep the last few remaining shreds of my hearing. And hopefully those Sound Ear 2s will make my rides with friends a little more enjoyable because I'll be able to hear them and not have to focus on trying to hear them, which takes away from the ride. Yeah, great product. I'm really glad I took the chance and spent the money. Oh, I'm so happy. Good earplugs. Who knew how much of a difference it would make? And if anything dumb happens, if I lose them or the cat eats them or the dog poops them out or something, you know, they have my impressions on file. I can always say, hey guys, I need another pair, send them on out. I will say they're not cheap. Not really sure how much these cost. That's very typical of me. But they're in British pounds, which means they're even more expensive. I think these were about 90 pounds, which probably means like 120, 130 in Australian dollars. It's going to be even more expensive for the Sound Ear Pros. But, you know, to protect my hearing and to give me a better ride, well worth it. Well worth it. Well worth the money. I'm going to go spend that money right now. All right, folks. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Someday I will get that. Someday I'll get that owner's review of this bike completed. I don't know when. I mean, I'm trying my best here, but something goes wrong every time. Anyways, thanks for coming along for the ride. As always, be safe. Get home safe. Have a great day, folks. I'll see you next time.